Hi, everybody. I realized I was covering the mic there. Okay. So, hi. It's now week 7. I'm late, despite the fact that I had caught up, but oh well. So, week 7 on the YouTube Pagan Challenge. This week's topic was how do you view sacred texts and mythology? So, that's a really cool topic. I love reading, so I've read a lot of mythology. Not as much as I want to, and I actually recently bought some books to read farther or further into it. And yeah, I mean, I really love to read, so this is pretty cool topic. Um, as far as like common sacred texts go, I do own multiple copies of the Bible, and I do own the I think just one copy of the Quran. I've never read either of them. My my fiance has, but it's just those are kind of really weighty for me. Like that would take some serious dedication for me to sit and read those. Mostly because I mean it's just the wording, you know, stuff like that. I it's not that I don't like complicated wording sometimes. I mean, you know, like old school language, but it takes concentration for me to read that kind of thing. That's why I like a lot of mythology that has survived this long, and you know, people still replicate to this day and write their own versions and own interpretations of it because it's so much easier to read, and it's really interesting to see different myths. Like obviously very popular myths to be retold are like Greek myths, and even retold time and time again, you know, and it's great to see it filtered through other people's perspective. I really like that. uh I think I've mentioned before I'm a really big fiction reader, and I love fantasy and like sci-fi and stuff like that. So I've read so many really cool like retellings of myths, but in a modern way. Like those are so fun. I really enjoy that, especially when you know, like the the real stories. Like you know, it's so great to see other people who took such an interest in it enough to retell it in their own way. Like that is really cool to me. Um, but getting into that, that is a really those retellings I think are also really important because it's saying something. The way I view mythology is mostly based around the idea that they are stories. I there you can read mythology from many different cultures, and there's often like an overlying like features of the human psyche, and you know, you can see different archetypes and story plot lines and events that needed to be described, like natural events and things that so many cultures felt the need to write myths, write these stories. I think that's really important. I think that's what makes myths so important is it's not just about deity, and it's not just about whatever. It's about these ideas that everyone felt the need to describe and felt the need to spread that and use their spirituality to describe these things. I think that's really cool and important. Um, but it also, the retelling aspect is the retellings of myths is not some kind of new concept, obviously. I mean, I state that, but it's the obvious, right? Where you know you can sit down like one of my favorite myth of all time, forever, probably, unless I read something friggin' blows my mind, but I doubt it, because I love this particular story so much, is the myth about Persephone. Now, I don't resonate with the Greek pantheon, really, but it's something, everybody, at least in the Midwest, in the United States, we learn about Greek myths. We do. We learn about Greek myths multiple different years in school. So that was obviously my first exposure to it, but reading it is so... I love that myth. I love it goes way deeper than just describing why the seasons exist. It's so much more than that. You have this idea, depending on how you look at it, you have this idea of either it's a transformation story for a girl, a maiden, a young woman. She goes from innocence to a woman. It's so much more important than that. And then you have this mother aspect too, her mother, and how her mother reacts to this situation, the loss of her child, but then the need to have to let her go. And yes, when you read the basic myth in school, oh yeah, she has to let her go because Hades forced her to whatever, be part of, be in the underworld at different times of the year and then be with her mother the other time. It's so much more than that. It's not just about this man forcing her to, that's such a basic way to view it, is that Hades forced her into it and blah, blah, blah. That's such a basic way to look at it. It is so much more about the evolution of a woman, of a girl into a woman. At least one way of it, just one way to describe it, I guess. But that myth, not only is it obviously retold in school in different ways and blah, 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 like modernly reinterpreted to be taught to children, but it's an ancient story. Persephone is an ancient character, an ancient deity. She went through evolutions to get to the point of that myth. The way we are taught it in school, that particular version. There is so much more before that. And then you take that myth, or any myth, even if it's part of okay, this myth is part of Greek mythology and it's obviously from Greece and blah, blah, blah. It's not like now. It's not like now where you go look it up online. I mean, yes, you write it down, but multiple people are writing it down because multiple people have heard it from people before them and people before them and so on, right? So, yeah, okay, so even to simplify it, you have two people that have written this myth, but they're from completely opposite sides of Greece. They have probably heard that story in two totally different ways. Just even little minute changes, they've heard it differently. And that's exactly why, to me, myth is a story. It's based on truth. It's based on archetypes. It's based on human condition. It's based on history of, the things going on in that moment in time. It's based on the culture of that time. It's based on so many things, but that is exactly why it changes so much, because it has this underlying idea that resonates with so many people. But as time changes, as culture changes, as things happen around you, these stories can evolve to suit the situation, to suit the feel of the time you're in, or that's why, you read it in school and it's simplified and blah, 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 and just like a simple little story, because that's what this time period has made it into. it doesn't, now it's just oh, here's what those people believed. It's a simple, and to be taught to children, and it's completely simplified, but that's because that's how it's evolved to this point. You can look at different, you know, Celtic myths, and they were written down by people who did not follow that religion, right? And I'm not saying, I don't think that those, just because, I mean, I know that's like a thing in Reconstructionism, is like you have to kind of pick through these things written down by other people to see the truth in it. Well, there's still truth in it, and it just evolves because it's another person retelling it in their own way, and it's evolving. It just evolves. That's the point of historical text, the point of myth, everything, it evolves with time. And even the Bible, it's translated multiple times. It's things have been lost from the time it was written, there were rough drafts, I'm sure, and it evolves with time, and that's the nature of story. Yeah, but I do view them as very important because of those things, though. I think it tells you more than just stories about deity. It tells you stories about people. It tells you stories about the people who wrote it. It tells you stories about the people who translated it. It tells you stories about the people who have retold it 20 million times over. That's what makes it so sacred. That's what makes it important, are those aspects. It's like myth goes deeper than just telling you about your deity. It goes deep into humans. And I think that makes it really important from a pagan aspect. I don't see who could disagree with that. It's celebrating not just spirituality and deity, it's celebrating humans and what we have done and what we kept believing and what was important to us in history, what made it, even if these are real, true, absolute things that happened, right? They're still embellished. History is embellished all the time. All the time. So, you can't, you read a bunch of books about a historical event, but it's from the perspective of so many different people. It's from their interpretation. Same thing. I mean, you want to accept these things you read in history books as cold hard facts, but you have to, it's not written by a computer. It's not written by a robot. It's written by humans who heard it from humans who read it from other humans who wrote it down, going back and back and back. And even if you read something written, if you go to a time in history, like, my fiance has a love of the Civil War. You read something written down by someone at that time who told you exactly what they saw. It's still from their point of view. It's still filtered through a human. And I think that's super important. Yeah, I mean, I do see, as far as like the spirituality aspects of it, I think there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of people who have done way, like this is their job as they research these things, right? And seeing myths is not just so simple as, even that. It's like these stories, if you really look at it and break it down and compare it to other things, they are like secrets into what these people, how their own rituals and their own beliefs. And it's like, these are some, especially like there's a lot of like Nordic myths that are seen by many people as like historians, especially, I guess. But I've heard from different actual like people who consider themselves pagan view it this way too, where it's like these myths were never intended to be taken literally. They are a way to describe a ritual, or like well, yeah, like a ritual, but in an artistic way, in a way that is not meant to be understood by the layman, I guess, and until you come to fully realize what the story really means, you know? And that makes it go so much beyond, too. Again, it relates so much to humans, to humanity, and it's like it's a historical document. I'm watching a video. I'm so sorry, I don't remember your screen name, but she's talking about other historical documents. Yeah, it's a historical document. It's going into literal things that happen, but not literally how they're said. Does that make any sense? I don't care. It makes sense to me. Yeah. And I do think you can take these stories, these myths, to understand deity in a way where it's like, okay, you know, these deity have certain characteristics that seem to go through, you know, multiple myths. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You know, these characteristics about themselves, their personalities, things like that, or whatever, their temperament. And I think you can use that to understand that deity, of course, you know, but it's also, I think, really important to do ritual to connect with deity, to go, you know, you can understand them on that superficial level maybe, and you can understand like what what people viewed them as and things, and you can use that definitely to understand a deity. But I think it tastes like when they read those myths, when they wrote those myths, they were not just store they were not fiction to them so much like it is now. It's not like they understood the grains of truth because, you know, this had been embedded in their culture. You know, they went when they did rituals and when they went to temples and things like that, the deity were right there. You know, to them, the deity were there all the time. When it's taught to kids in school, it's like these deities don't exist anymore. But it wasn't like that for them. Just like, I mean, the Bible, right? I mean, to a Christian reading that Bible, it's like God is right here with you all the time. It's so different to read a myth about something that you feel is right with you compared to reading a myth to something that you are taught is not real or in any way, right? Um, yeah, so that's all I have to say. I'm sure I have said a lot of things that a lot of people believe and have said. I've watched lots of videos, and I've started subscribing to like a ton of new people because of this tag, which is great. I love it. Found so many cool people on YouTube who I didn't even know existed. So again, I thank everyone for participating in this. I thank everyone for making this real and a thing. It is so cool. I don't care if I'm gushing and being weird because I mean it. It's great. I'm so glad this exists. I'm so glad you all exist. Even though there's probably only like 5 of you that watch this video, I don't care. I just love that you exist. And I love that you take the time to watch this video. I love that you hopefully make your own videos. Like, really great. Really great. I love it. Anyway, this video's gotten long because I got a little ranty. I'm sorry. Anyway, hope everyone has a great day. Is it? I don't know. I'm just rambling now. I'll just stop the video.